Hi, Cody here with Part Equine Health. We're going to talk today about how to correctly wrap a hock wound or bandaging on the hock area. It's one of the toughest wraps to perform on a horse and keep it in place as there's so much movement in that joint. So we'll work through kind of the process. We aren't going to do wound cleaning today, but we'll work through the process of wrapping a bandage onto the hock. The very first thing I like to do when I'm bandaging a hock is to spray the area, or any bandaging period, but especially the hock, is I like to spray the area with an herbal or topical liniment. I prefer something gentle such as Dynamite's Release, which is perfect for bruises, soft tissue injuries. What it does is encourages circulation and reduction of swelling and inflammation. So I first and foremost, since I'm going to be wrapping this area, you can see Sage has been shaved because her wound is on the inside of that hock. But I like to spray any area that I'm going to bandage simply because we're going to have to put some pressurization on that bandage. It's going to have to be tight. So I want to not cause any more problems with swelling. So I just spray it on. Sometimes I let it dry, sometimes I just rub it on there to rub it in. The second thing I'm going to do, because it is a bandage on a wound, I'm applying a Curlix pad on her wound at this point, which is a gauze type pad that encourages drawing. Basically it pulls out the infection a little bit and pulls the weeping out, but you can also use any Tefless pad, anything like that will work. So I'm going to take the Curlix pad, place it over her wound, which is on the inside. I'm going to keep that pressure on there. Next, I'm going to take a cotton roll to wrap around the hock. We're going to wrap this in a figure 8 pattern, and we want to wrap it with quite a bit of tension so that it pressurizes any swelling, but also so that it stays on. You always want to first start by placing the roll on the horse and making sure that your roll, whichever direction you're going to head, you're rolling away from the end to keep pressure tight. I'm going to start over top of her bandage and hold to the front here. I'm going to pull not so tight that it rips the cotton. That's why I like to start with a cotton pad or cotton roll, because if you pull too tight, it actually will rip. So it's a good way to judge how tight to make it. And I'm gonna just figure 8 around. Obviously her wound is above the hock, the point of hock, which is the boniest point back here. So I am going to focus my roll that area. But every couple strings I'm gonna cut down and come across to the lower point, wrap it back up, making sure that I'm covering the bottom of the bandage or the pad and the top so it can't slip out. And really important is looking at the back end from the point of hock. I want to make sure I have at least 4 to 6 inches of material. Reason being, if there's anything less than 4, it can put so much tension and pressure on this deep digital flexor tendon. So when we disperse that over 4 to 6 inches, even more, it makes sure that we're not going to cut off circulation and cause any tendon issues. So I've used a whole cotton roll. Next, I'm going to take a gauze roll. Buy this at your feed store. I'm going to follow the same direction that I've been going. Now you have to be a little bit cautious with the gauze that you don't put too much tension and make it too tight. When you're wrapping at each layer, you want to make sure that you can get a finger in the top, see where it gives a little bit, and a finger in the bottom. If you can't get a finger in, it means your bandaging is too tight. It's going to cut off circulation. If you can get too much finger in there, it's too loose and it'll slide down. I'm going to continue with the gauze in the figure 8 pattern, same way that I did the cotton padding. I'm not going to use the whole roll of gauze. And if you can see, I'm leaving a little exposure at the point of hock here. That's simply to allow that flexion and extension of that hock as she's walking. Because her wound is up high, I'm going to try to finish all my wraps up so that I can keep the pressure over that actual bandage. You can tuck your ends in. I don't, simply so I don't cause any more friction where it doesn't need to be. Now I'm going to take standard vet wrap. Same thing, I'm going to start at the top. Easy girl. And we're still applying a bit of pressure to this wound because it's still a little bit inflamed. So I'm wrapping hers pretty taut, following the same pattern, just figure eighting around, focusing up over the wound itself. Making sure there's at least a couple passes on the bottom to support the bandaging. And again, making sure that my actual bandage is enclosed on the top and bottom. My vet wrap, I can either cut it or I can bring it all the way around and close it on the inside. It doesn't really matter. Once I have the vet wrap on, I like to massage it in so I know that it's sticking to itself, especially the end. And really, if you're really concerned about swelling, you could just leave it here. Check your bandage. However, to secure it, I like to use elastic-on tape, again, at least a 3-inch, if not more. And start at the end of my vet wrap, which is on the inside on this wrap. You have to be careful with the elastic-on that you don't make it too tight. So I'm just going to simply follow it along so it's taut, but not cutting off circulation. I like to finish all my leg wraps on the outside limb so they aren't rubbing at all or kicking at it or scratching at it with the other leg. I'm going to rub it in, same thing, heat activated. So rub in the end. Sage is moving pretty good. I could keep it here. If she's excessively swollen down here or lower, I can add another layer up top so it actually sticks to the fur. That's where we were the first couple days. Or I can leave it here. I'm doing an every other day wrap on her right now, so I'm trying to keep this in place for a little bit longer. So I'm simply going to add one more layer of elastic-on, essentially over the prime area of bandage, or of that Curlix pad on the inside, just to make sure it's secured, that it stays a little bit longer. But again, because I'm around this tendon back here, I want to make sure it's not too tight and cutting off circulation. Things to know or to check for as days go on is I'm going to look for any excessive swelling below the bandaging and above. Make sure there's not excessive heat above or below. That would mean the bandage is too tight. If it's slipping down, the bandage is not tight enough, or you may just need some elastic-on up top to connect it to the fur. So pretty standard, basic hock wrap, figure 8 hock wrap. You can also replace your cotton roll with regular cotton. I just like to have that layer because it's a good gauge of tension on doing the actual wrap, but also because it keeps fur intact and it's a little bit gentler on their skin. But you can use any variety of supplies. I just prefer that. Thanks for tuning in to our video today. Remember to keep your questions coming. I like suggestions for further videos and further articles to write and post on our Facebook page. The more input I have onto what topics everyone's interested in, the better off I can serve everybody and learn on my own as well. I learn just as much from the questions as everyone else. Like us on Facebook to stay connected to our videos.